Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Flowers, and this is my Tort Liability project for Module 13, EDL 951. First off, we need to understand what tort liability actually is. This is liability for consequences from actions when injury occurs to another intentional torts. So it has to have an intent to cause harm. Now, this can't be, there's also negligent torts. This is injury as a direct result of negligence. There's a lot of elements that go into this. We have to understand that as educators, we are responsible for the students in our care. We have to ensure that anything we have them do has to make sure that they should stay healthy and safe. It is our job to ensure this. First case I'm going to talk about is Anwar Jackson et al. Versus Bridgeport High School. This is where two students were accused a staff member of searching their phones during an investigation into a recruiting scandal. The football coach, who was fired based off of MHSAA violations, caused a ban for their school for postseason for football play, along with embezzlement. The coach had used funds for non-athletic purposes. The coach, using this information, then sued the school for fraudulent information. The school settled, as it was going to be cheaper for the school district to actually just pay the coach off than it would be to take it to case and fight it. Reactively, I would say the school would fight it to stop a dangerous precedent. If any other coach now is accused, they now could say, well, you paid this one off for the same fight, so now you need to pay me off. You don't want to fight this fight. So I think it's very dangerous to set that bar. You have to be prepared that, yeah, it might cost me more this time, but in the long run, it'll save us. Proactively use a third party in these forms. If there's a student ever accused of, God forbid it, sexting or anything, you call the police in to get them involved and have them check the phone. As the administrator, I don't want to be responsible for your phone. Therefore, if you have a school resource officer, they're a great resource. That's a third party. Have them go through it. Have this searched by a group that is not you. It needs to be a separate entity to avoid accusations. Just to go with professional ethics, as the admin, we have duties to our staff while holding obligations to protect the school. We have to protect our staff. It is our job to ensure that we are guiding them, leading them, and helping them to understand proper techniques. If they are having issues with this, we need to make sure we're teaching them so that way they don't continue to make these mistakes. My second case is Hoyam versus Manhattan Beach Public Schools. Michael arrived at school to attend class. Michael's a student. He left the school early, so dipped out of class. Upon leaving, he got in an accident in an intersection nearby. When he got hit, he then had to be taken to the hospital. As a result of this, his mother did not find out from the school that he wasn't there. Instead, she found out by finding him at the hospital, which then left her with emotional and physical injuries. This is a major issue. As a school, I know in my school that I work for, we are required to give attendance every class period. And if a student isn't in third hour, yet they were in second hour, a phone call goes home. That way the parent knows, hey, your child is no longer in school. This is what's going on. So reactively, we need to, make sure that we have cameras set on all doors. We can't have people going in and out of our building without us knowing. We need to possibly add some hall monitors. When a teacher's not on duty, that would be a great time for them to be observing the hall. Maybe, again, school resource officer. But we need to make sure that we're monitoring all these situations. We need to make sure that our school has specific places where students can leave. Students shouldn't just be walking in and out of whatever door they want. Proactive, have limited exits from the building. Put hall monitors to ensure that students cannot just leave. So ethically, it is our job to ensure our students are in our building. Once they're in our care, they're our responsibility. As a coach, if a student is not riding the bus home with me, I have a parent sign them out. This signing them out in their contract before the season begins states that when you sign a student out, any injury that is result of them not riding home with us, the school and I are not liable for, because of that we aren't in control. If you just ride home with your parent, now I don't have any proof that you weren't with us. You get hurt, it is on me. So we have to cover our bottoms. Third is the Burnett versus Caldwell. The teacher, Miss Caldwell, left her room to use the restroom, leaving students unattended. This is not unheard of. Sadly, students began horseplaying and resulted in a student's death. You know, teachers everywhere all the time go to the restroom. It's a sad fact that we can't leave our room without this kind of situation happening. So reactively, a discipline referral for the teacher because of the fact, yes, you did leave students unattended. And then training on supervision requirement for all staff. All the staff members need to understand, okay, step into the next room, see if there's a para available to come step in your room. You need to have somebody who is an adult observing your classroom at all times. Proactive ensure staff handbook has a procedure for viewing. Train all staff on observation. Ethically, again, it's our job to ensure their safety. If I leave my classroom and Billy and John start fighting and Billy accidentally kills John by hitting him in the temple, it's now my responsibility because they were in my care. We as the educator are responsible for what goes on in our classroom, even when we're not in the room. Burlington versus the city of Philadelphia. In a PE, a student fell into a wall, receiving a cut and concussion. The parents sued on need of pads on the wall. They did lose, but so part of this, reactively, my first thought is, okay, student was walking down the hall, they tripped, they fell, they hit a wall. So in this lawsuit, are you saying I need to have pads on every wall in the building? I know that seems very sarcastic, but that's the procedure that you would be asking for. So add padding to high-risk areas. Yes, I agree. In a gym, you probably need pads on the wall. You know, you're doing sprints, you're doing anything. You have a high risk for falling. So we need to make sure that they're safe. Proactively inspect the property often. We need to notify staff when something needs repaired. And we need to make sure that our school has a clear-cut maintenance form and on how things are going to get repaired. We need to make sure everyone knows how to fill out this maintenance request. In our district, if we have a maintenance request, we go to our building secretary, who then puts it in, and then any maintenance request, it'll be put in order of need. You know, that I find to be a little bit frustrating. I myself, I would rather be able to go, hey, John, come on down and can you fix this? Because our maintenance guys, they all know who we are. Yet if we want something fixed or if we want IT to do something, we have to fill out a request that then gets put on a pegboard, but we also have to go through a third person to get this all set up. I think it needs to be a one-step process, not having all these extra steps. Pierce versus Hearn Independent School District. A student in Texas dies on an ATV accident when transporting tools to another farm on a teacher's order. So here's my thing with this. Not every school is going to come across something like this because not very many schools have ATVs for students to be using. In our district, we do have a golf cart. We have gators that often students, especially for football managers, that they're using. If these students aren't trained properly, which sadly I've seen them use it before, they'll just speed around making a mess of themselves. If that thing flips, it could harm them. So reactively, ensure proper training of staff. These are the people allowed to use it. This is, if you're wanting the student to use it, they need to be observed. They need to make sure that they're trained properly, and we need to follow concussion protocol. If we're going to have students use this, they're going to have to make sure that they're prepared to understand how to go through concussion checking and training. Ensure proper observation. Again, if we're going to have them drive this thing, we have to make sure that this motor-powered vehicle, that we're watching them. Proactively, we need to review and revise student observation protocol. Just having them use whatever they want to do it, and just because you said go do this, that's dangerous. I mean, as a football coach, I would not send my staff on the gator because of the fact if they flip that gator with all the equipment in it and they bang their head, they get rolled over. Am I going to see them on the opposite side of the football field when they're on the other side of the building? No. So now they might be trapped until the end of practice. They might be trapped for 10 minutes because I go, what the heck, where'd they go? So we need to train all coaches also on concussion protocol. Luckily, here in Kansas, all coaches or anyone dealing with any kind of uh, event now are required to be trained in concussion first aid and AED training. So that's a great thing. I mean, at some point, I see them adding that to all staff in general. Um, so a lot with tort is making sure we're following what we should be doing anyways. It's doing the small things correctly and safely. Thank you guys. Have a great night.